writers and producers of this audio drama. I would like to welcome you to the 4th season of the Wessex dramas called The Well-Beloved. This is the 2nd season in our Seaside trilogy of Hardy novels. It is a romance set on the Isle of Portland, or as Hardy calls it, the Isle of Slingers. This novel is quite famously known for its mildly doubtful moral character of its main protagonist, so in this one we decided to zhuzh things up a bit, or swap things around. I hope you enjoy our take on it. So poke your bonnets, throw a shoe at your maid, retire to your boudoir, and let us draw our attention to the shenanigans of an artist on a small island in the south of England.
The Isle of Slingers and Chesil Beach. It is daytime. Montage. Chesil Beach. A handsome young man of around 20 years old, Jocelyn, is returning home carrying his knapsack. It's 1868. He trudges along the shingled Chesil Beach and wears a big straw hat and somewhat bohemian clothes with an open-necked shirt. In his knapsack is seen a large, well-used art palette, half hanging out, and some painting brushes sticking out of the knapsack's pockets. He passes 6 fishermen, pulling 2 lerrets up onto the shingle to join another lerret already there. They all nod at each other. The seagulls are screaming loudly as he trudges on. A large rock near the water's edge. Jocelyn comes up to a rock, pauses, screws up his eyes, and holds out a raised thumb, estimating the distance to a rock by the water's edge. As he moves his thumb back away and towards himself, it reveals a young woman sitting on a rock, combing her hair, with her back largely to him. She has sufficient of herself exposed to reveal that she is a magnificent mermaid, with long auburn tresses a la Rossetti. The mermaid turns and regards him with large opalescent eyes. Jocelyn rubs his eyes in disbelief. When he looks again, she is gone.
My well-beloved.
Jocelyn shakes his head to clear it. Nearing a pile of rocks, he walks on in the direction of some distant rocks. As he approaches, he holds out his hands and frames the rock as if it were a painting. Jocelyn moves his frame towards his own eyes, and as he does, 3 beautiful young nereids with long, dark brown, wet hair a la Waterhouse come around the rocks with the water halfway up their bodies, stop and stare at him. Jocelyn drops his frame and stares open-mouthed. He then holds up his frame hands again and moves the frame about, but the nereids have gone. Jocelyn blows out a breath.
I must get some food.
He walks on. Near to the island. After a distance, Jocelyn pauses for a minute and looks up at the island with fond remembrance, nodding his head. The island is somewhat misty and the houses appear to float in it. Fortune's Well. Jocelyn walks up the hill in Fortune's Well and is greeted separately by 5 different people as he continues his walk. He then smiles and nods to himself as he leaves the town precincts. Mr. Pierson's senior's house and environs. Jocelyn walks across a quarried landscape littered with rocks. Jocelyn arrives at his father's house, an unpretentious large cottage with a few outbuildings. Jocelyn's father, Mr. Pierston, comes out to greet him, and the father and son hug each other affectionately. A couple of stonemasons go and come, variously from the outbuildings, and they tip their caps to the newcomer, who grins, calls, and waves back. His father smiles again and puts his arm around his son's shoulders. He squeezes them and then guides Jocelyn indoors. Mr. Pierston's cottage, in his dining room. It's daytime. Jocelyn's father has finished his lunch and is sitting at the other end of the table sipping his wine while regarding his son affectionately. Jocelyn puts his spoon and fork back on his pudding plate. He smiles, sighs contentedly, and pushes the plate away.
Have you finished that statue of that woman yet, my lad? I can get some more stones sent down to you when I send my next consignment to London.
You're a brick, Dad. But you've sent me enough stone to last an eon. I can hardly get in my studio. And no, I can never seem to get my well-beloved's head right. I have started to sell the occasional piece, though, however.
That's right, lad. That's right. All of them Londoners, they'll all come to see how good you are. Our own neighbours will even come to see.
Jocelyn smiles and shakes his head a little, in embarrassment at this warm praise.
Dad.
Aye, you just remember, the
stones our land make the face of London.
Mr. Pierston leans over and affectionately musses his son's hair.
Good, you've remembered it.
He sits back.
That Avis, she were asking at you, you know. And
Which exactly of the island's 83 Avises was this, father?
And her ma, Mrs. Caro, were asking at you this morning as well. So I said as you'd probably go over there to pay your respects.
Yes, good idea. I think I'll pop over there now, Dad. You won't feel I'm deserting you.
Mr. Pierston smiles and stands up. Jack, a labourer covered in stone dust, arrives in the open doorway of the dining room, removes his cap and knocks respectfully. Mr. Pierston nods at him.
Nah, lad, I've got a big shipment of stone to go off this afternoon.
We've already done them loads, sir.
Good. And have the lads been down the lower yard?
They has, sir, and I think as they done a really good job with that smoother stuff.
Give Mrs. Caro my respects as well. You remember, her husband died last year, and she's left to run his fishing business.
Righty-o, sir. I'll call in at luncheon.
No, not this un, Jack. I thinks as how your brain is away aggying. Jossie!
Jocelyn is musing over his cider. He looks up.
Yes, Dad?
Mr. Pierston rolls his eyes.
Yes, you've to go and visit the Caros. Her little Avis be a real looker now, you know.
Oh, aye, sir. She be a positive Greygoyle.
Mr. Pierston looks at him in disbelief and exasperation.
Jack!
Yes, sir?
Mr. Pierston raises his arm and points away beyond Jack.
The yard's out that way. You can wait for me there.
Oh, aye, sir.
Jack smiles, replaces his cap and goes out. Mr. Pierston smiles, shakes his head in gentle resignation at Jack's retreating back, ruffles his son's hair, and then goes out after his employee. Jocelyn leans back in his chair, sighs with contentment, and sips his wine. Caro's house, in the kitchen and living room. It's daytime. Mrs. Caro, a fishwife, opens the door to Jocelyn's knock, cries out with pleased surprise, takes his hand, pumps it, and draws him into the living room. She kisses him on the cheek and sits him down on a chair near to the fire. Mrs. Caro then bustles about, filling and putting on the kettle while asking him questions. The kitchen living room has nets and buoys hanging on its walls. There are several barrels and lobster pots against the wall, on one side of the room. There are some fish spitted on sticks and standing up out of a bigger piece of wood smoking slowly at the back of the fire. There's the sound of running feet and then a cry. Jocelyn turns around and sees Avis. He stands up.
Ah! Why, 'tis dear Joss!
Avis, a pretty girl of 18, runs up to him, throws her arms around his neck and kisses him on the lips. Jocelyn, who has spent the last 4 years in London, is a bit shocked by this familiarity, and despite himself rears embarrassedly back a fraction. For a few seconds. And then is mortified that he has hurt the poor girl who is only doing what she has always done. He awkwardly squeezes her shoulders in return when she is suddenly embarrassed, hangs her head and mutters "sorry" in response to his initial pulling away. Mrs. Caro has seen her daughter's familiarity and is a bit disapproving.
My pretty little Avis, how do you do after so long?
Mrs. Caro chivies Jocelyn to a chair. They chat and laugh over tea. Mrs. Caro's house and garden, daytime. Mrs. Caro and Avis are waving goodbye over the stone wall as Jocelyn walks away. They then turn away and walk a few steps back into the centre of the garden, and Mrs. Caro starts doing a little desultory weeding.
Avis, my dear, what were you doing kissing Mr. Pierston like that? You be a woman now, 18 years old. He, a young man from London and foreign places, used to university and company manners and all.
Avis is stricken.
I didn't think of how I was altered, Mother. I'm sorry.
Now must be careful, love. He's getting to be a famous sculptor and probably he's had lots of young women after him.
We just always kissed when we were young.
Yes, well, you're grown up now, so you just go and get your piano practice and then such as he won't think you're such a low old pudding.
Avis turns indoors.
Yes, ma'am.
Mrs. Caro shakes her head and continues her weeding. A cliff walk. Daytime. Avis, in a light cotton printed gown and wearing a shawl and bonnet, is walking along chattering with Jocelyn. The sun shines on the sea, the waves crash and the seagulls wheel around. They are both happy.
Oh, but I can't meet you then, as I have to practice for my poetry reading competition.
Poetry, Avis?
Yes, Mother sends me for elocution. And she says that she doesn't want me sounding like a fishwife, which is funny, because she is one.
It doesn't matter what you sound like. You're still the pretty little Avis I've always known.
Avis smiles up at him, and they walk on. Mr. Pierston's home and stoneyard. It's daytime. Jocelyn and his father are strolling around the yard, and Mr. Pierston is keeping an eye on a couple of men loading a cart with rubble.
So, how long do I have you this time, my lad?
Oh, I reckon I can have a few weeks off this time, Dad.
And how you're doing for money up in London?
Dad, your allowance is more than generous and...
It's no bother to me, son. My merchant business is doing so well as I could buy this island twice over.
Do you not want to move to a bigger, more commodious house then, Dad?
Mr. Pierston laughs and ruffles his son's hair affectionately.
What on earth for? Just to give myself airs? No, I'm happy enough here. Here is where I lived with your dear mother.
He looks up and calls to the two men who have part-filled the cart, whose harness arms are resting on a couple of big stones.
Oi, Jack! Don't forget to add the extra sideboards on, and use both of the cobs, and then you'll be able to get a pretty lot down to station.
Jack tips his cap and nods, smiling, to Mr. Pierston. Woodlands, daytime. Avis is sitting on a rock in one of her pale, summery cotton print frocks and a fetching little chip hat with her hair in a braid and a black bow at the end. She is trying hard not to smile. Jocelyn is sitting on a rock nearby and sketching her.
No, no, you are being my muse, the embodiment of my well-beloved.
Well, I don't know how well-beloved I am, but I don't mind being your muse, I suppose.
Jocelyn smiles shyly at her.
Oh, you are well-beloved, my little Avis. I've always loved you.
Avis smiles embarrassedly, turns her head and looks away.
No. I need to see those pretty dimples, or I'll get my sketch wrong.
Silly.
Jocelyn looks at her lovingly, and she turns back and smiles at him. Chesil Beach, daytime. Jocelyn is walking along towards a group of fishwives, gutting and salting herring on 3 trestle tables, with barrels and nets drying nearby. Two men stand smoking pipes by their lerrets, which are drawn up on the shore. He sees a pre-Raphaelite Waterhouse Nereid-type young woman from behind, in her floating sea-green chiffons and flowing auburn hair, standing, bending near the nets, fastening her sandal with her foot resting on a rock for support. Jocelyn makes towards this beautiful girl, but by the time he has arrived at the group, she has vanished behind the drying netting. Jocelyn then sees another pretty girl coming towards him as he passes the group of fishwives, and it's Avis. She smiles and hails him, waving from a short distance away as she comes towards him. A rocky, wooded area at daytime. Jocelyn is very gently, very rapturously kissing Avis for the first time as they stand together. She leans back, smiles, and looks up at him.
So you are mine then?
Yes.
You will be my little wife?
Yes.
Forever?
Yes. But I want to do it the old-fashioned way and be, you know, together, before we announce our betrothal to people.
Shouldn't I tell your mother?
No. I want us to seal our betrothal the old way, before we tell anyone else.
Well, I have to leave for London in a couple of days, so I'll sort things out, and then I'll write to you and your mother, my love, and I will come back here to be married to you.
Meet me up on the cliffs, where we normally go. Then, on that Sunday afternoon, my mother is going over to Budmouth, and I will have finished my work for her. Then we can do what lovers do.
She smiles shyly and looks down. Jocelyn squeezes her and kisses her passionately again.
Thank you, my love. And then you will be mine, my well-beloved.
Chesil Beach, daytime. Jocelyn has a small knapsack and is walking up and down along a remote stretch of the beach. He seems puzzled and worried. He gets out and regards his pocket watch. There's a small boy coming along the beach towards him. The boy approaches him and holds out a letter to him. Jocelyn smiles and gives the boy a penny. He then opens and reads the note.
My dearest, I am sorry if I should grieve you in what I am going to say, but I now think that we should not meet to honour the old ways. I shall wait to hear from you when you arrive back in London. So I will not be at the cliff, nor down on the shore later, lest people should realise. I will leave our betrothal entirely up to you to acknowledge, foregoing the old ways. The time will soon draw on, my love, when no more goodbyes will be required. Always and ever yours, Avis.
Jocelyn smiles, shakes his head ruefully, and puts away the letter in his pocket. He then nods his head in reluctant acquiescence as he walks on. There's a well-dressed woman in furs in the distance, and two older men walking towards him, Mr. Seaborn and a friend, whom Jocelyn doesn't see as he has his head down. Suddenly, Jocelyn exclaims in irritation at missing Avis.
Oh.
He kicks up the soft sand into the air and accidentally into the faces of the oncoming men.
Oh, sorry, I didn't...
The men tip their hats as they move on.
Mum's the word, sir. But I heard my youngest talking with young Avis Caro, and so I wish you joy of your choice and hope the wedding will be soon.
Thank you. Well, we shall see what Christmas does towards bringing it about. Sorry.
Jocelyn turns around ruefully and carries on walking forward towards Budmouth. The men talk about Jocelyn as they walk the other way towards Portland.
Who's that young Kimberlin? He don't seem one of he.
Oh, he is, though. Every inch of him. He's Pierston's son from up at East Quarriers. His father could buy up half the island. Jocelyn is one of them, image carvers up in London.
He'll be on his way back there then, eh? Good job.
He looks up at the gathering clouds.
Weather's changing here now.
They walk on. It starts to rain. They turn up their collars and continue. Jocelyn catches up with the young woman ahead, and she half turns as he approaches. Jocelyn looks in surprise at her. She, Marcia, is very tall, beautiful, and in her mid-20s. He sees the well-beloved in her profile as she slowly turns her head to him. She is clad in a midnight blue silk bustled gown, wrapped in a big fur stole, and wearing a darkish blue hat with a feather. She looks incuriously at him.
Mr. Pierston, I believe.
The rain intensifies.
Yes. Whom do I have the
Marcia Bencombe. My father is retired, but he used to have the best stone company and be your father's worst rival, I believe.
Jocelyn smiles and walks beside her in the rain, which now gets worse.
Yes, I've heard of him. Hello.
Hello. Look, I know this sounds rude, but could you possibly lend me a few pounds until I get back to my aunt? We live in Kensington, but have been renting Sylvania Castle for the last month while on holiday. I'm running away to my aunt's house back in London, however, as I am tired of my father eternally lecturing me.
Goodness. A runaway, eh?
Suddenly the heavens open and Marcia cries out and turns her collar up. Jocelyn looks up and sees a large, half-upturned leret ahead. He points and shouts out,
The leret, there! Quick!
They run towards it, with Marcia holding onto her hat.
That was an episode of The Well-Beloved. We would like to thank our editor, Liam McArthur, for his amazing skills and ear for detail. And I would also like to thank our brilliant cast. Alban O'Brien, Peter Allison, Scott Munrow, Stephan, Caro Joy, Olivia Watson, Robin Lee, Izzy Joy, James Heseltine, John Simpson, Catherine Dyer, Mark Joy, Tony Lee, Tracy Hayes, and John Seal. You can find us on YouTube under Rose Goldthorpe Films, also Instagram, Facebook, and theoretically I have a Twitter, but I haven't been near it since 2005. We are also on the Spotify. We are on Thomas Hardy's Society's website, and also our own website, The Daily Dilettante. If you want more updates on what's happening, again, check out our socials, or sign up for our newsletter on our website. Again, The Daily Dilettante or Rose Goldthorpe Films. Thank you again so much for all of your hard work and support, and see you all next time.